CM Punk confronts Roman Reigns. CM Punk attacks WWE Raw. CM Punk just answered March 10th. And the answer was not a promo. Not a segment designed to re-establish his narrative position after Roman Reigns destroyed him in front of the wrestling world. Not a carefully crafted verbal response that metabolized the destruction into material for the next chapter of the psychological campaign. Not any of the things that CM Punk is most known for. Not the thing that the wrestling world expected. CM Punk walked into Roman Reigns' space on Raw and he hit him. First, without warning, without the preamble that confrontations between these two have trained the audience to expect, without the verbal exchange that the format of these interactions has established as the required precedent to the physical, without, and this is the most important element of what happened on Raw, any of the performance of the moment that would allow either participant or any observer to process what was happening as television rather than as something real. CM Punk confronted Roman Reigns and then CM Punk attacked Roman Reigns. In that sequence, with that directness, with the specific, unannounced, completely committed quality of someone who has made a decision that is not available for revision and is expressing that decision through the most direct possible physical means. The wrestling world's reaction to this has been the most divided it has been since the feud began. Not divided in the simple way of two sides supporting their respective performer. Divided in the more interesting, more revealing way of two sides processing the same event through completely incompatible frameworks. One side seeing CM Punk's attack as the most important thing he has done in this feud, as the moment where the psychological campaign dropped its final layer of performance and showed what it was always operating toward. The other side seeing it as exactly what Roman Reigns and the bloodline needed, as CM Punk making the move that transforms the match from one that Punk could win through intelligence into one that Roman wins through everything else he has. Both sides are making arguments that the wrestling world needs to take seriously, and both sides are missing something that this video is going to surface. Because what CM Punk attacking Roman Reigns on Raw actually is, what it means, what it reveals, what it changes and what it confirms is the most important question in WWE heading into WrestleMania. And the answer is more complicated than either side of this divide is currently offering. Let's go through the Raw confrontation between CM Punk and Roman Reigns from the beginning, because the path to the attack matters as much as the attack itself. The path tells you what Punk was thinking, what he had decided, what conclusion his assessment of March 10th and everything that preceded it produced, and what the confrontation was designed to do before the attack made everything else secondary. The confrontation did not emerge from a scheduled segment. This is the first thing that distinguishes it from the managed interactions between these two that have populated the WrestleMania season's programming. The Punk-Roman confrontations that WWE's production team has planned and positioned and built camera coverage around those interactions are real in the emotions they contain and the stakes they establish, but they are also real in the sense of being produced, of being episodes in a story whose architecture exists before the cameras roll. What happened on Raw had a different quality. Punk appearing in Roman's space without the production apparatus having built the segment around the appearance. Without the camera positioning and the commentary setup and the crowd direction that managed segments receive. Without the infrastructure of WWE television storytelling machinery being present and operational to shape what happens and how it is received. The confrontation, in its early moments, had the specific quality of something that the cameras caught rather than created. Of something that was happening and that the production was racing to properly capture rather than something the production had set up to capture. That quality, the feeling of the cameras adjusting to the situation rather than the situation adjusting to the cameras, is what gives the confrontation its specific, unmanufacturable texture. Roman Reigns, whose awareness of his operational environment is total and continuous, saw Punk before Punk reached him. This is not speculation, it is consistent with everything we know about how Roman Reigns inhabits any space he occupies, which is with the constant, peripheral, exhaustively maintained situational awareness of someone who has been the most significant target in professional wrestling for long enough that the awareness is no longer a conscious act but an operating condition. Roman saw Punk coming, and Roman chose to let him come. The specific choice of not deploying the defensive response that Punk's approach was triggering the choice to hold and observe rather than immediately respond is a choice that tells you something about Roman Reigns' assessment of the confrontation's direction that we will need to return to later in this video. And then CM Punk attacked. Not at the culmination of a verbal exchange that built to the physical. Not as the response to a provocation that Roman produced in the confrontation's opening moments. First, immediately. With the specific energy of someone who had decided before the confrontation began that the confrontation was going to contain this action and was going to contain it as soon as the opportunity presented itself. The attack was not sophisticated. It was not the physically clever, athletically creative, in-ring intelligent assault that CM Punk's most accomplished in-ring moments demonstrate. It was direct, immediate, fully committed to the simple objective of landing with maximum force at the first available opportunity. And that directness is the most important thing about it. Because CM Punk attacking Roman Reigns directly without the layered preparation, without the psychological setup, without the intellectual architecture that his competitive approach usually places beneath his physical actions, is CM Punk operating from a place that his character's established operating mode does not typically permit. It is CM Punk operating from anger. Real, present, not constructed anger. The specific anger that March 10th's destruction produced in someone who has spent years using anger as intellectual fuel rather than competitive driver, who has metabolized every slight, every loss, every professional humiliation into material for the next verbal assault rather than into the immediate physical response that less analytically sophisticated competitors produce. March 10th broke that pattern. Whatever Roman Reigns delivered to CM Punk on March 10th landed in a place that the usual metabolization process could not process quickly enough. Could not convert from raw emotional input into intellectual output before the accumulation reached the level where output of the intellectual kind was no longer the only available response. And on Raw, in the confrontation with Roman Reigns, the accumulated thing that March 10th could not be metabolized produced the attack. This is the most revealing thing CM Punk has done in this entire feud. Not the most technically impressive, not the most verbally brilliant, not the most psychologically constructed, the most revealing. Because it shows what exists underneath the performance of CM Punk's competitive intelligence when the performance is not available, when the emotions are running faster than the analytical machinery can process them, when the person is more present than the performer. And what exists underneath, when it is operating from this place, attacks Roman Reigns directly without calculation. First, on Raw, in front of everyone, here is the dimension of the Raw confrontation that nobody is spending enough time on. Roman Reigns saw CM Punk coming. We established this. And Roman chose to let Punk come rather than deploying the defensive response that Roman's operating mode always has available. Why? This question is the most important analytical question the confrontation produces. Because Roman Reigns letting CM Punk reach him, letting the confrontation develop to the point where Punk's attack became possible, is not an oversight. It is not the specific moment where Roman Reigns' situational awareness failed him. The situational awareness never fails. We have documented this across every confrontation, every attempted ambush, every tactical operation directed against the tribal chief throughout 2026. Roman always knows. So Roman knew Punk was coming, and Roman chose not to stop the approach, and Punk reached him and attacked. And Roman's response to the attack, the specific quality of what Roman Reigns produced in the moments after CM Punk made physical contact, is the piece of information that changes how we read the entire confrontation. Roman did not respond with the unfiltered fury that March 10th produced. The emotionally driven, completely unmediated, I am expressing everything version of Roman Reigns that destroyed CM Punk most recently was not the version that showed up in the confrontation's immediate aftermath. What showed up was something colder, something more controlled, something that looked less like the response of someone who had been attacked and more like the response of someone who had been given exactly what they were waiting for. The composure was back, and the composure was specific in a way that the wrestling world needs to read carefully. It was not the composure of someone who has absorbed a surprise and is managing the emotional response while the strategic response assembles. It was the composure of someone who was not surprised, who was expecting this, who may have been engineering this. Roman Reigns letting CM Punk attack him on Raw may be the most sophisticated tactical move the tribal chief has made in this feud, not because an attack is strategically useful in an obvious way, but because getting CM Punk to attack getting the best wrestler in the world, the most controlled and most analytically sophisticated competitor in professional wrestling, to abandon the intellectual framework of his competitive approach and operate from the direct, physical, anger-first mode that every other opponent Roman faces uses, is the specific result that Roman's competitive preparation for WrestleMania most needs. CM Punk on his intellectual terms is the most dangerous version of CM Punk that exists. CM Punk operating from anger from the emotional place that the attack on Raw revealed is a different version. One that Roman Reigns, with everything the bloodline has operating behind him, is better equipped to address. Did Roman Reigns let CM Punk attack him on Raw because Roman knows that the angry version of CM Punk is the version Roman beats at WrestleMania? The wrestling world, in the aftermath of CM Punk confronting and attacking Roman Reigns on Raw, is being asked to choose between two readings of the same event that produce completely opposite assessments of what the event means for WrestleMania. Reading 1. CM Punk attacking Roman Reigns is the bravest, most consequential, most genuine thing Punk has done in this feud. It is the moment where the intellectual performance dropped and the real competitor, the person underneath the best wrestler in the world branding, the person who actually feels the months of this feud's accumulation rather than simply analyzing it, took a direct action that changed the dynamic between these two men in a way that all the promos and the psychological campaigns could never change it. It is CM Punk saying that WrestleMania is not going to be decided by words. It is going to be decided by what happens between these two people in that ring, and Punk making that statement through the attack is Punk choosing the terms that he believes give him his best chance. Reading 2. CM Punk attacking Roman Reigns is exactly what Roman needed. It is the specific era that the tribal chief's entire sustained engagement with Punk's campaign was designed to produce, the moment where Punk's competitive intelligence, operating under the emotional pressure that the feud's accumulated weight produced, abandoned the approach that made him genuinely dangerous and adopted the approach that Roman Reigns and the Bloodline are most completely prepared to address. It is Punk giving Roman the version of WrestleMania that Roman wins. And if Roman engineered it, if letting Punk reach him an attack was a deliberate choice designed to produce the specific competitive response the attack represented, then Roman Reigns has just made the most sophisticated pre-WrestleMania chess move of 2026. Both readings are available. Both have genuine textual support in the evidence of the Raw confrontation. And the wrestling world cannot determine which one is true from the outside, because the truth of which reading is correct lies inside the competitive planning of both men and what Punk decided and why, and in what Roman did and why, and neither of those internal realities is accessible to external analysis. WrestleMania is the truth teller, not because the result proves which reading was correct in an absolute sense, but because the result, combined with how the match unfolds, provides the evidence that the two readings can be adjudicated against. The outcome tells you which version of these two men showed up at WrestleMania, and which version showed up tells you which reading of the Raw confrontation was the more accurate one. The Bloodline's operational infrastructure observed what happened on Raw between CM Punk and Roman Reigns, and the information they generated from the observation is the most valuable competitive intelligence the faction has received since the WrestleMania program began. The Bloodline now knows something about CM Punk that the intellectual performance of his competitive approach had been obscuring, something that the months of carefully constructed promos and the psychological sophistication of his campaign had been managing effectively, something that March 10th produced and that the Raw attack confirmed. CM Punk can be made angry, in the specific, operationally relevant sense of anger, not the analytical anger that his promo work deploys as a precision tool, but the genuine, present, overrides the analytical anger that March 10th's destruction created and that the Raw confrontation's attack expressed. The anger that causes an action before the analysis can moderate it. A CM Punk who can be made angry, who has demonstrated that the emotional pressure threshold required to produce the unmoderated anger response is achievable within the specific context of this feud, is a CM Punk whose competitive approach has a specific, identified, now confirmed vulnerability that the Bloodline knows how to address. The question is whether CM Punk, who is the most analytically self-aware competitor in professional wrestling, has identified the same vulnerability in himself from the inside. Whether he recognizes that the Raw attack was the anger response rather than the analytical response. Whether he understands that Roman Reigns and the Bloodline now possess the specific information that the attack generated. And whether he can, in the days between Raw and WrestleMania, rebuild the analytical management of the emotional pressure that the feud has generated to the level that the WrestleMania match requires. If CM Punk understands what the attack revealed and adjusts. If he arrives at WrestleMania as the intellectually managed version of himself that is genuinely most dangerous, then the Raw attack is a moment of vulnerability that the preparation absorbs and that the match's result overcomes. If he arrives at WrestleMania as the emotional version that the attack expressed, then Roman Reigns and the Bloodline have what they needed. CM Punk confronted Roman Reigns on Raw and attacked him. The wrestling world is divided between the two readings we laid out today. WrestleMania is here, and which reading is correct is about to be answered on the grandest stage available. I need every take in the comments right now. Is the Raw attack CM Punk's bravest moment in this feud or his most consequential mistake? Did Roman Reigns let CM Punk attack him deliberately, and if so, is that the most sophisticated pre-WrestleMania move in 2026 WWE? And the question that every single person watching this video needs to answer before WrestleMania's bell rings: which version of CM Punk shows up at WrestleMania after the Raw attack, and is it the version that wins or the version that loses? Drop everything in the comments. Share this video immediately with every wrestling fan you know, because the CM Punk vs Roman Reigns WrestleMania program has reached its most complex and most genuinely uncertain point, and this breakdown provides the deepest available analysis of what the Raw confrontation actually means. Subscribe to Wrestling News CC and activate every notification, because WrestleMania is here, and what happens between these two men on the grandest stage is going to be the defining moment of 2026 professional wrestling. CM Punk attacked Roman Reigns on Raw. The tribal chief saw it coming and let it happen. And which of those two facts matters more at WrestleMania is the most important unanswered question in